expertise, and commitment to this effort, it would have been impossible to achieve these important outcomes. I also want to thank the Caribbean Development Bank for its financial support for this initiative and its commitment to strengthening maritime security in the Caribbean region. And many thanks, too, to the Regional Security System for partnering with us on this endeavor. A special thanks to Commodore Arrington Sherlin and his expert team, including Rhea Reed, for their leadership, their dedication, and their overall stewardship of this program. I also extend a warm thanks to SICTE's key collaborator on this project, the International Maritime Organization, for its ongoing global leadership on all maritime issues. Throughout this engagement, we've worked hand in hand with Andrew Clark, and we thank him and his colleagues, including Peter Adams from IMO and the UK Department of Transport, for their invaluable support. And last but not least, I want to extend a special thanks to my team members in SICTE, Elizabeth Lurie, for their leadership and management of the project. She overcame many challenges in implementing this initiative in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we were truly grateful for the work of our key expert, John Platts, for his expertise, counsel, and wisdom that he brought to this process. Developing national maritime security strategies is key to promoting security in the Caribbean. These strategies help national authorities implement their long-term vision for developing and safeguarding their maritime domains, including territorial waters. These plans also assist in putting into place safeguards, which can serve to counter threats, which all states must address, such as terrorism-related activities, corruption, and poor management practices. National maritime security strategies also help states ensure that they're conforming to international rules and best practices relating to maritime operations, and that their domestic legislation and rules and policies, as was just noted, reflect those international norms. Improving maritime and port security in our hemisphere is a key objective of SICTE's work, and we've provided practical support to the region in this area now for nearly 15 years. But we haven't done it alone. We firmly believe in the importance of cooperation and coordination, and so we're honored to work alongside organizations such as the IMO, CARICOM Impacts, and RSS to strengthen maritime security in our region. As Ms. Reed noted just now, this particular effort has been 2 years in the making. Some of you will recall that we began, as she said, the journey in April 2019 with a briefing to the RSS Council of Ministers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Since then, SICTE has been working hand in hand with RSS headquarters, national authorities, and with key maritime officials in the beneficiary states to see this project to a successful conclusion. I'm particularly proud to confirm that together we have developed 4 comprehensive national maritime security strategies for Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. 3 additional strategies for Dominica, St. Lucia, and Grenada that have not yet been fully completed but are very nicely advanced. And 1 regional maritime security strategy for the entire Caribbean region. However, we know that the real value in a strategy and other similar policy documents lies in its use and implementation. And so today, I'd like to encourage all member states to first congratulate yourselves on this important accomplishment, but I also want to encourage everyone to begin implementing these strategies as quickly as possible. SICTE, of course, would welcome the opportunity to continue supporting you in that process and in other efforts to help strengthen and protect the Caribbean's maritime domain. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I now pass the floor back to Ms. Reed.
Thank you very much, Ms. Botet. The RSS is extremely appreciative of all the technical guidance provided by the OAS team over the course of this project. Member states each went on a journey to assess the threats and risks in their maritime space with the reliable assistance of the International Maritime Organization, an organization which is a strong supporter of maritime safety. The IMO has been a steady partner throughout the project, providing technical expertise to member states in maritime threat assessment. This technical guidance not only assessed threats occurring in the physical maritime space, but also assessed the vulnerability of other border security mechanisms which contribute to the protection of the maritime commons. For example, port and cargo management and its information, communications, and technological vulnerabilities. Maritime security is therefore complex and requires expert management at governance concerning striking a balance among a range of competing issues. This is partly due to the fact that there are various players, both public and private, with various interests using the maritime space. Our upcoming speaker has had the benefit of dabbling in the public and private sector. Peter Adams is the Special Advisor to the Secretary General and the head of the Maritime Security Section at the International Maritime Organization. Peter became an Admiralty pilot at the Ministry of Defence in Portsmouth and latterly a commercial marine pilot on the Forth in Edinburgh. He joined the IMO in June of 2021 as the head of the Maritime Security Section. It gives me great pleasure to invite Mr. Peter Adams to deliver remarks on behalf of the IMO. Mr. Adams?
Thank you, Mrs. Reedbone. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to start by recognising the enormity of the achievement of this product. Developing one national maritime security strategy is a complex undertaking in itself. Developing 7 national strategies and a regional strategy has never, to the best of my knowledge, been attempted before. This project, delivered despite the most challenging of COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, provided critical benefits for the RSS region. These include, first and foremost, the promotion of the maritime security agenda and a set of strategic objectives and lines of effort that clearly set out how the RSS signatory states, working together, will secure the maritime domain and blue economy that is so crucial for their current and future economic prosperity and that of their citizens. The strategies also provide a framework to maximise limited security resources and to avoid duplication of effort, and, crucially, to identify the areas of capacity building which will enable the development of a coherent action plan to build long-term, sustainable regional capability. This latter issue can often present significant challenges globally, with different international donors sometimes offering the same assistance and not always addressing the key capability gaps in the respective member states. These strategies will help ensure that this does not happen in the RSS region. IMO's role in this project has been as a supporting partner for OAS and RSS, with funding kindly provided by the Caribbean Development Bank. But one area which we have been very proud to lead was the development of the National Maritime Security Risk Registers for the RSS signatory states, which in turn led to the development of the Regional Risk Register. We should acknowledge too the assistance of the UK in this endeavour. A systematic and evidence-based understanding of maritime security risks lies at the heart of effective national and regional maritime security strategies, with the risk registers as living documents which can be developed further and which underpin the decision-making of the National Maritime Security Committees. Sadly, we live in a world where we will continue to see new and emerging risks becoming more complex and interdependent. And the risk registers, properly updated, offer a powerful tool to help ensure that maritime security policy not only keeps pace with these new risks, but provides a degree of future-proofing. As I'm sure has been mentioned many times during the project, the purpose of the strategies is not just to sit on the shelf, but is to lead action plans to implement the vision that has now been so clearly articulated within the region. We at the IMO stand ready, working in partnership with OAS and RSS, to provide the technical assistance needed to help the signatory states deliver the activities to make this strategic vision a reality. The strength of the RSS Forum is to genuinely communicate between signatory states, coordinate security training, share assets, and enhance regional information sharing and maritime domain awareness. We very much look forward to working with you in the future. But for now, let's take a moment to acknowledge again this very impressive achievement, which provides the vision to safeguard maritime security in the region for generations to come. Thank you. Now I'd like to hand the floor back to Mrs. Reid-Bowen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adams. Our next speaker, the International Maritime Organization is known for spearheading interventions which contribute directly to the 2030 Agenda and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals agreed to by 193 United Nations member countries. Due to the role of the maritime space in security and economic activities, it is impossible to divorce maritime security discussions from development. 90% of the world's commerce travels by sea, and if we think about it, the vast majority of the world's population lives within a few hundred miles of the ocean, and nearly 75% of our planet is covered by water. The maritime space therefore has the ability to significantly affect the lives of our populations. Any practical discussions on the development strategy for the Caribbean, therefore, cannot exclude maritime security. Our next speaker is considered a strategist in his own right and is passionate about Caribbean development in all of its dimensions. Dr. Leon is the 6th president of the Caribbean Development Bank, having taken up this position from the 4th of May, 2021. He has over 30 years of experience in economic development, directing policy support to government authorities in Africa, the Middle East, Central Asia, and the Caribbean. Prior to his engagement with the International Maritime Fund, Dr. Leon was also an associate professor at State University of New York at Old Westbury in the United States. He has also served as director of research at the Central Bank of Barbados and country economist at the Caribbean Development Bank. Dr. Leon holds a Doctor of Philosophy and Economics from the University of Southampton in the United Kingdom and a Bachelor of Science degree in Economics from the University of London, also in the United Kingdom. It gives me great pleasure to invite Dr. Leon, President of the Caribbean Development Bank, to deliver remarks on behalf of the bank.
Good morning and good afternoon all. The Honorable Mayor Amma Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados and Chair of the Regional Security System, Commodore Errington Sherland, Executive Director, Regional Security System, Mr. Peter Adams, Head of Marine Security Section, International Marine Organization, Ms. Violanda Bode, Deputy Executive Secretary, Organization of American States, Inter-American Committee Against Terrorism, representatives of the RSS Council and member states, other specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, and online audiences. In 2019, when the Caribbean Development Bank, the CDB, commenced this project with the Regional Security System, the RSS, no one imagined what would lie ahead. Yet here we are towards the end of 2021, with countries in our region continuing to navigate a global pandemic, and some are also recovering from the impact of environmental hazards, including volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, floods, and drought. Notably, the countries are navigating these challenges whilst charting a course to sustained development, in keeping with their commitment to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. At CDB, understanding now what was unfathomable then, we continue to lead and support our borrowing member countries to contend with current and future challenges. Indeed, a greater coalescence of regional efforts in the maritime domain could not have come at a more opportune opportunity. Through this engagement, CDB has sought strategically to build capacity in the RSS, a highly specialized entity focused on regional security, indeed an essential public good. Beyond the linkages with CARICOM's crime and security strategy, this initiative contributes to broader regional efforts to support inclusive and sustainable economic growth, reduce inequality, and promote regional cooperation. Our objective is to accelerate economic development through such technical assistance to the RSS. In addition to promoting mutual cooperation on security-related matters, the RSS also supports relief and recovery efforts by mobilizing, coordinating, and deploying resources to impacted states. Through its oversight of the marine space, one of the region's major assets, the RSS also safeguards the foundation of what is popularly known as the blue economy. At an OECS roundtable on the blue economy, I recently challenged our region to build resilience across environmental, production, social, financial, and institutional spheres in order to optimize available resources. In a region where the ocean and maritime assets represent a resource that, in aggregate, is 5 times our land mass and impacts more than 70% of our population, considerable focus should be placed on capitalizing this largely untapped resource, whether in fisheries, aquaculture, mariculture, coastal tourism, marine biotechnology, shipping, port infrastructure and services, desalination, or ocean energy. Indeed, the development of the blue economy could spur a much-needed boost to our economic diversification. In pursuing the potential contribution of the blue economy to our economic development, we must also address vulnerabilities arising from climate change. From 2000 to 2019, borrowing member countries of the CDB experienced 190 disaster events from natural hazard impacts, resulting in 14.5 million persons being affected, 238,000 deaths, and US $26 billion in physical damage. The cumulative impact of disasters and persistent structural weaknesses have constrained our growth potential. The COVID-19 pandemic amplified these effects. Based on CDB's latest revision, in 2020, all but one of our region's economies contracted, with 12 recording double-digit declines in gross domestic product growth rates. There is therefore need for an urgent call to action to mitigate the effects of and implement adaptation measures against such hazards, while strengthening our institutions and promoting sound social and economic policies to support the sustained development of our borrowing member countries. The new Regional Maritime Security Strategy, developed with technical assistance from CDB, incorporates some of these considerations. It identifies explicitly the need for each member state to continue utilizing its marine resources to derive economic benefits and prosperity from the blue economy. Through mutual cooperation, the RSS is seeking to improve performance at institutions engaged in maritime operations and tourism-related activity. With the shift to embracing common standards among the region's maritime security practitioners, the bank anticipates that these data-driven interventions will enhance maritime security across the region and leverage sub-regional cooperation. Commodore, we thank you for your commitment to ensuring the successful conclusion of this critical project, which is impacting all your member states and streamlining strategies in a highly sensitive and critical area. To the International Maritime Organization and the Organization of American States, both of which are participating in this event virtually, we appreciate your technical support as we build essential capacity in the region. We look forward to a successful implementation and your continued partnership as we maintain efforts to sustain the lives and livelihoods of our people. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Leon, for highlighting the synergies between security and development. We all know too well the contribution stable economies make to the provision of opportunities for citizens. What we have to consider more often is the role that security plays in the maintenance of safe and stable societies, a foundation for development. The RSS has been a reliable organization working to achieve the goals of the collective sub-regional grouping. The organization's mandate mirrors the nature of security. It is wide and varied and permits the organization to promote cooperation among its member states in various areas such as countering illicit trafficking, maritime policing, immigration control, fisheries protection, inter alia. At present, cooperative engagements are aimed towards strengthening capacities to sustain citizen security and enhancing environmental resilience through improved domain awareness and response capabilities. Steering the sub-regional bloc through these waters en route to these goals is Commodore Errington Sherland, the Executive Director of the RSS. He is the former Deputy Chief of Staff of the Barbados Defence Force with over 33 years of military service. During his career in the military, Commodore Sherland served in several operational and administrative posts. He also served as Barbados's alternate representative at the Organization of American States and Barbados's delegate to the United Nations and the International Maritime Organization. He was also an advisor to the Barbados delegations negotiating the maritime boundaries and fisheries agreements with the Republic of Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago, respectively. He holds a master's degree in maritime administration from the World Maritime University in Malmö, Sweden. It gives me great pleasure to invite Commodore Sherland to deliver remarks on behalf of the RSS.
Thank you very much, Ria. I wish to join in recognizing the presence of the Honorable Mia Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados and Council Member of the Regional Security System, Dr. Jean Leon, President of the Caribbean Development Bank, the Permanent Secretaries in the Ministries of National Security in the RSS member states, Mr. Peter Adams, Head of Maritime Security Section of the International Maritime Organization, Ms. Violanda Botet, Deputy Executive Secretary of the Organization of American States, the Inter-American Committee Against Terrorism, my dear friend, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Jones, Executive Director of CARICOM IMPLAX, the security chiefs or their representatives who are with us physically and those who have joined us virtually, other specially invited guests, members of the media, a very pleasant good morning. Today is a good day. It is a good day as we are happily bringing to a conclusion the very worthy project with the handing over of the national maritime strategies for the 7 member states of the regional security system and an overarching regional strategy. Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean states share not only historical commonalities, but also economic and cultural, and in several instances, familial ties. The physical and geographical closeness of our islands and shared maritime space also means that we have shared security challenges, such as transnational organized crime. These shared challenges dictate that cooperation and information sharing between the RSS member states is critical for maximizing maritime and port security by essentially multiplying the capabilities and resources of any one state. But why do we need comprehensive national maritime strategies and an overarching regional strategy? Ladies and gentlemen, sustainable development and peace and security are 2 sides of the same coin. Development and security go hand in hand. Fundamentally, there can be no sustainable development without security, stability, and peace. Our maritime space is a source for economic development that needs to be secured for the benefit of generations to come. I wish to suggest that maritime security is not simply about law enforcement and governance of a territorial sea or exclusive economic zone. It is about unlocking, in a sustainable and secure way, the growth potential of the blue economy. The importance of the maritime space for our collective future is undeniable. This importance is underlined by the United Nations 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals, in particular, Sustainable Development Goal number 14, which speaks to the conservation and sustainable use of the oceans, seas, and marine resources. The oceans have a tremendous potential for boosting economic growth, employment, and innovation, as the blue economy encompasses ocean-based industries such as shipping, fisheries, renewable energies, maritime transportation, seaports, tourism, and marine biotechnology, as well as its natural assets such as carbon dioxide absorption. These national and regional maritime security strategies will complement the work being done by states as they seek to develop the blue economy. Work such as the Growth Master Plan by the Government of Grenada, the 2018 study done by the Caribbean Development Bank titled Financing the Blue Economy, a Caribbean Development Opportunity, and the Eastern Caribbean Regional Ocean Policy that is currently being reviewed by the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, and also the Blue Economy Strategy that is being developed by the Government of Barbados. This is important as maritime security is viewed as the enabler of the blue economy through safeguarding navigation routes, protecting rights over valuable marine resources, and activities within claimed zones of maritime jurisdiction. Therefore, maritime security ensures good order at sea. The strategies were developed with the financial assistance from the Caribbean Development Bank and technical assistance from the International Maritime Organization and the Organization of American States. We are truly grateful and treasure this partnership. This project, however, was not without challenges, least of all COVID-19. We launched in March 2019 and had an original completion date of March this year. The advent of the COVID-19 pandemic meant that we had to revise the project plan, primarily for two reasons. Firstly, we had to cancel the in-country visits for workshops and follow-up assistance by the OAS and IMO technical support team. This consequently meant that we had to do those meetings via Zoom. And secondly, we had delays in establishing each member state's strategy development working group due to key personnel being assigned to pandemic-related policy and operational priorities. In this regard, I must place on record our appreciation for the flexibility demonstrated by the Caribbean Development Bank, the Organization of American States, and the International Maritime Organization that allowed us to reach this stage. I must also note the contributions of Ms. Elizabeth Laurie from the OAS, Mr. Andrew Clark from the IMO, and Mr. John Platts, who was a principal drafter of the policies, as well as the project leads and working groups in each member state, without whom this could not have been achieved. I wish also to acknowledge the hard work of my own staff at the RSS, in particular, Mrs. Rhea Reed-Bowen, who's the program coordinator, and Mr. Rolrick Sobers, who's the regional maritime officer. In closing, permit me to highlight that when it comes to maritime strategy implementation, the state must have the tools to achieve the stated strategic ends. The state must be able to actually take on the tasks required to realize those strategic ends. The state must have the legal authority and jurisdiction in place to secure, govern, and develop the maritime space, and must back all these aspects with sustained and committed support among key decision makers. Only with a safe, secure, and stable maritime domain can a prosperous blue economy thrive. I welcome the offer of assistance from the OAS and IMO to assist the RSS with the implementation of these strategies. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for the opportunity to be part of this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commodore Sherlin, for highlighting the importance of the project and its role in the strategic work of the regional security system. I now take this opportunity to invite Commodore Sherlin to present the draft National Maritime Security Strategies to our representatives for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Antigua and Barbuda. I now invite the representative from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mr. Fergus, to receive the National Maritime Security Strategy for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Top left. And I'll ask Commodore Sherlin to remain to receive the strategies on behalf of the Commissioner of Police for the Royal Grenada Police Force and the Chief of Police for the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force. And I now invite Dr. Leon, the President of the Caribbean Development Bank, to hand over the strategies to Commodore Sherlin. Oh, sorry, the Vice President of Operations of the Caribbean Development Bank. As well as the National Maritime Security Strategy for Grenada. Thank you very much, Commodore Sherlin. I'll ask the Vice President of Operations to remain. And I invite Commander Mark Peterson to receive the draft National Maritime Security Strategy on behalf of Barbados. Thank you very much, which leaves us with the Regional Maritime Security Strategy. And I would ask the President of the Caribbean Development Bank, Dr. Jean Leon, to present the regional strategy to the Honorable Prime Minister, Mia Amor Motley, QC MP. Thank you very much. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, as we move through our program for this morning, a short video was produced to highlight the various perspectives of the benefits of this project from some of our key stakeholders. And I'll invite you to view the short video presentation on the project.
The maritime space within the Eastern Caribbean is very important for the economic stability of the islands. Linkages in trade, tourism, agriculture, and human resources are a few reasons the connecting waters play a significant role in the region's sustainable development. It is therefore necessary to maintain and even enhance activities to ensure the safety and connectivity in the maritime domain. In October 2019, the Regional Security System and the Caribbean Development Bank launched an initiative which was designed to enhance the organization's capacity to coordinate maritime security cooperation across its 7 member states with the development of the regional and national maritime security strategies. Executive Director of the RSS, Commodore Arrington Sherland, stated that the strategy was necessary in ensuring safer seaports and harmonizing activities within the maritime space.
It is important to connect all the players, maybe Coast Guard, Marine Police, Customs, Immigration, and also to protect the blue economy. And what are the benefits of the blue economy? And to ensure that the blue economy is sustainable for generations to come. The national maritime strategies will ensure that all those players that have a stake in ensuring that borders are protected will be able to do so in a coordinated fashion. That ultimately is the objective of the national maritime strategies and the overarching regional maritime strategy.
The collaborative approach needed to secure the region is epitomized through the RSS's ongoing partnership with CDB. Director, Projects Department, Caribbean Development Bank, Mr. Daniel Best, highlights the relationship between security and development from the CDB's perspective and what developmental benefits are expected to redound to the region.
Having identified regional security as a public good and in support of our regional cooperation and integration efforts, it is critical that the organization invest in strengthening capabilities within the RSS system. Given that the majority of global trade is conducted via seaports, and the fact that the Caribbean Sea is ranked as one of the principal waterways in the world and one of the most intensive maritime traffic areas globally, this project complements ongoing work by the bank in a variety of areas. Our interventions at several seaports in disaster risk reduction, combating climate change, and in trade and economic development can only benefit from improved regional cooperation, interconnectivity, and efficiency at our borders.
The waters which connect our states have been faced with numerous challenges as law enforcement officials tackle new and emerging threats in the current complex environment. Major Baz of the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force highlighted some of the issues which affect their borders and noted that a collective approach was the only effective way to fight the illegal activities.
The domestic crime and gangs that affect St. Kitts and Nevis covers areas such as the illegal trafficking in arms and ammunition, intimidation, gang-induced violence, and the inclusion of youth into the gang culture or the recruitment of youth into the gang culture. The maritime strategies address not only the individual states' challenges, but identifies regional cooperation as a mandatory input to effect a broader maritime approach to human, national, and regional security.
In addition to improving security of the territories, the strategy will also benefit the management of ports in RSS member states. Director of Maritime Affairs in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Mr. Hyrone Johnson, reaffirms the need for such a strategy as regional ports of entry aim to align with international standards.
This strategy explains how SVG organizes and uses its current national capabilities to identify, assess, and address maritime security issues and how it intends to improve SVG ability to do so in future through the most efficient use of available resources.
The initiative has been funded by the Caribbean Development Bank and the RSS, while technical support was provided by the Organization of American States. Deputy Executive Secretary of SICTE, Violanda Botet, shares the hemispheric commonalities regarding the maritime security challenges and counter-initiatives in securing the maritime space.
By establishing a high-level policy framework and vision for securing the state's maritime domain, including ports and territorial waters, OAS member states can help safeguard their ports, their waters, and their communities. OAS SICTE would like to focus in the future on providing technical support and additional capacity building, which would be tailored to addressing the results of the unique national assessments completed during this project.
This has indeed been a worthwhile project for the RSS. Stakeholders eagerly look forward to the developmental benefits expected with the implementation of these strategies.
Having heard from our guest speakers today, representing the key organizations involved in this project, the underlying theme is the support that each of these organizations seek to provide to their constituents, the member states. Each of the RSS member states benefit from the services provided by these organizations in some form or fashion. As we move towards fruitful engagement with our constituent member countries, it is important for us to remain knowledgeable about the contemporary realities of the member states that we serve and seek to find innovative ways of supporting and strengthening them as we maneuver through this international system. Our featured speaker is familiar with the unique challenges faced by small island developing states as we seek to advance our development. Similarly, she's also aware of the need to leverage the blue economy in our quest for further development. She needs no introduction, but I have the distinct honor of inviting the Honorable Prime Minister, Mia Motley, QC MP, Prime Minister of Barbados, to deliver the feature address on this occasion. Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It is a pleasure this morning to join all of you on the occasion of the handing over of the National Maritime Strategies for the RSS member states and indeed the overarching regional strategy. Maritime security, as we always know, has played a pivotal role in the history and the development of our region. The sea has always been central to human development as a provenance of our resources and as a means of transport, information exchange, and of course, strategic dominion. However, even though the prominence of the maritime domain in the global and regional economic development is there and our national security over the last few centuries is acknowledged, it is safe to say that some practitioners in the Caribbean have not fully embraced the contributions the security of the maritime space could make to our developmental projects. In colonial times, there was no doubt that this was what connected us, indeed, as Caribbean territories, and a strong maritime infrastructure with significant investment in marine ports and British naval power was to secure the economic and financial dominion of the British. And of course, those other colonial powers who chose to use the Caribbean as a platform for their games. It is often acknowledged that these investments were linked to these colonial powers' great importance with respect to their issue of mercantilism, which was at the center, we all know, of their strategic expansion across the globe. History has recorded that in every aspect. Today, the ocean continues to be playing a pivotal role in our global economic order, with over 90% of the world's trade traveling by the oceans. If we travel back in time to the mid-20th century, mid to late 20th century, the attention paid to maritime security and its contribution to economic development by some of our territories may not have mirrored the attention paid by other actors in the international system. Additionally, enhancements to maritime security management frameworks focusing on improving maritime law enforcement capabilities and enshrining the protection of the maritime commons in national defense and economic strategies was simply not adequate. Let us put this policy position into perspective. And I do this all the time. The RSS space, my friends, for the 7 member states is 412,804 square kilometers, or just under 160,000 square miles. To put it into perspective, that therefore means that the RSS maritime space is 128 times larger than the territorial jurisdiction of the combined territories. In our own case in Barbados, our maritime space is 433 times that which we have responsibility for on land. We are responsible basically for more ocean space than we are on land. It is for that reason that my government established for the first time a Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Blue Economy. My friends, that therefore means that this is a very large space to secure against illicit trafficking activities, exploitation of living and non-living resources, and indeed the opportunities for economic development with respect to that area are vast. I do not paint this picture for the Caribbean with the intention to cast blame on people previously who had not exploited it. But the reality is that we are now in uncharted waters, and we now know that we cannot rely only on our land jurisdiction, but must exploit fully and protect fully our maritime resources. I believe that this whole idea of having a strategy will give us insight into assessing the significant strides that we have made and indeed that we must continue to make for our people as we go forward. Let us forward to the point where the RSS joins the rest of the actors in the international system in acknowledging the wide encompassing definition of security and the inherent inclusion of new players and additional complexities to the security environment. The emergent perspective on security further therefore underscores the quixotic relationship between development and security, which we all too well. While the security development nexus is not new to the RSS, and we know that clearly, it certainly provokes thought and action surrounding the power and potential of the sea to advance those productive sectors, as I've just referred to, in our national economies and the need to secure this space. We're required as well to reflect on the wrath of the ocean, and we know it only too well with the coastal erosions that we've seen over the years, and perhaps with greater regularity because of the climate crisis that we face. We know the extent to which key infrastructure has in fact been damaged and in some instances destroyed in the region as a result of that wrath of which I spoke. To my mind, therefore, we must see maritime security as a confluence of a number of things. One, traditional security measures such as the defense of the homeland at sea and the protection of our trade routes, which have been disrupted so much in recent times. Two, the protection of the maritime environment, countering marine pollution, improving ocean health generally, and increasing the resilience to fight the effects of climate crisis, which we know is fully upon us. Three, economic development, specifically leveraging the use of resources in our maritime space for economic development, whether it is fisheries, whether it is minerals, or whether it is coming to an end with respect to how we close off our fossil fuel exploitation as we get ready to fight the new world that requires us literally to put our lives and our livelihoods at the center given the climate crisis. And at the strategic level, it is therefore difficult and ill-advised to separate non-traditional security concerns from maritime security discourse. As we deliberate further on this concept within our own reality, permit me therefore to paint a picture of the sub-region. The contemporary security environment is now thought to become more complex, characterized by various modalities of security threats such as the transnational organized crime that Commodore Sherlin spoke about, money laundering, terrorism, piracy, environmental degradation, pandemic diseases. I can go on and on. While the presence of the myriad threats holds true in the regional space, it is equally important to recognize that non-traditional threats, particularly environmental degradation and climate crisis, and the health security features prominently in our development and security discourses today, are things that we must keep in mind. The climate crisis has affected security in both the traditional and the non-traditional sense. Non-traditional from the perspective of the impact of rising sea levels on agriculture, inclusive of what it has done to our fisheries environment, thus affecting our food security and nutritional security ultimately. The disruption in economic security caused by the closure of our air and sea ports due to floodings caused by sea level rise, or indeed the intense weather systems that we are seeing that bring the short, sharp showers that we are seeing all too often now in our afternoons. And likely sea level rises vary as a result from the rainfall patterns and intensified hurricane systems that we now know can affect us all. I've spoken too often also of the impact of seawater incursion into our aquifers and the extent to which that will make access to groundwater even more challenging as we go forward. 2017 was that year that showed us the possibility of what could happen with the impact on Dominica and Antigua and Barbuda in particular with those successive hurricanes that hit us. The coastal and inland flooding due to intensified storm surges, as I said, have also continued to be a problem for too many of our other countries. Trinidad, Guyana, and Suriname may not be hit by hurricanes, but they are hit by floods, and as low-lying territories, particularly with Guyana and parts of Suriname, parts of Trinidad, the extent to which that will impact those countries is all too evident in recent times. My friends, we have been told by the CCC, the 5 Cs, and the UNDP that a 1-meter rise in sea level can displace approximately 110,000 people in CARICOM member states. For the RSS in particular, it was estimated that 2% of the population in St. Kitts and Nevis, and indeed 3% of the population in Antigua and Barbuda could be displaced as a result of these types of events. This potential displacement leads us to inquire if the current response in our member states can accommodate management of mass migration or displacement of such a large number of persons. Commodore Sherlin and myself have been in conversations recently with some of our international partners with respect to this reality of our capacity to be able to handle mass migration as a result of climatic events. It is our judgment that there is much work to be done if we are to be able to do this seamlessly, and time is not on our side. My friends, if we therefore reflect on these matters, we will realize that it is critical that we also include humanitarian and security missions as key parts of our preparation as we go forward. And I'd like to urge the Caribbean Development Bank to ensure that it is in a position to recognize that without scale, humanitarian efforts will come to naught, as we've seen recently, only too recently, with the volcanic eruption in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. To have 500 cots or to have 1,000 meal packages will not even begin to cut it with respect to the kinds of responses that are going to be required from us as we go forward. In addition to transnational organized crime and environmental threats, there is also the reality of the cyber threats that have now become more and more present, regrettably, in our region. The increased reliance on technology and the digital space for commerce, for domain awareness, and for law enforcement activities highlights the specific vulnerability with respect to cybersecurity. Like the other threats identified earlier, addressing these concerns and protecting our sub-regional interests must be contingent on our ability to understand fully the dynamics at play. Security threats which compound us, and opportunities which present themselves to us, and for us to determine where the balance comes between those threats and the opportunities that they present. No doubt this process of developing the strategies by our key stakeholders is critical if we are going to go forward and to fully exploit the nature of our maritime environment, to fully ensure that we can preserve it, and to fully ensure that we can protect those who live within the maritime environment on our territorial boundaries. There are far more commonalities than there are differences with respect to our individual maritime environment. In my view, we would be foolish not to continue to work together, not just at the level of the RSS, but also at the level of individual member states in terms of their policy as it relates to the maritime space. A number of us have already started to look at debt swaps for climate, as well as ensuring that we can put in place marine conservation plans without which this region will indeed suffer, because we are seeing too much loss of marine life from our waters as a result of a confluence of events ranging from the climate crisis to simply bad practices from agricultural runoff on our lands. I look forward, my friends, to our being able to put in place these regional and national maritime strategies which have been provided for us. I want to thank the IMO, I want to thank the OAS as our regional and international partners, ensuring that we continue to offset the limited capacity that we have as small island developing states through functional cooperation at the regional level and at the international level. And I use this opportunity, Commodore Sherlin, this is the first public occasion that I've had to formally congratulate you and to wish you all the very best, not only as you continue as Executive Director of the Regional Security System, but with pride now as the Chief of Staff of the Barbados Defense Force. And I thank you and look forward to your strengthening this organization at this most pivotal time in the country's history. Thank you very much. Mr. President, this is the first time I've come to the bank since you've taken up office, and I look forward also to your being able to work with us in a very real and practical way, because if ever there was a time for access to liquidity and for quick action on the part of those institutions that have been designed to help Caribbean countries on this journey of development, it is absolutely now. And I believe, therefore, that we have a solemn duty to be able to identify commonalities wherever possible in order to be able to diversify the risk and to reduce the cost of capital to our individual countries. Because if we see each country going forward doing the same thing one by one, then there is a justifiable case for pooling and for us being able to reduce the cost of capital and the risk where possible. Water and transport continue to be those two areas which I believe the CDB ought to functionally take out. And by water, it includes not just groundwater, but the blue economy, as we've discussed here today. So, my friends, I thank you for this opportunity to share with you this morning. If ever there was a time for functional cooperation across Caribbean countries, it is now as we face this climate crisis. And where is that cooperation most needed? In that area that binds us literally in our oceans. And I trust and pray that whether it is in dealing with the protection of our national security as we traditionally understand it, or whether it is protecting us against the environmental threats, or whether it is creating opportunities for our people through the traditional means like cruise, like tourism, or in the new areas that we have not even begun to think about in terms of deep sea drilling, we have, in my view, to come together as a region, irrespective of the language barriers and irrespective of the different states of governance that we have, in order to ensure that we protect the Caribbean Sea. And it is that place of patrimony that Norman Washington Manley spoke of so eloquently many, many decades ago. I look forward to our success in this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Prime Minister, for the thought-provoking speech. It definitely gave us much to consider as we come to grips with our current environment. Ladies and gentlemen, the importance of the blue space cannot be emphasized enough. It is a vessel used to provide the majority of goods and services to and from states, and it carries the lifeblood of the global system that links every country on Earth. On behalf of Commodore Sherlin, I want to take this opportunity to thank the Honourable Prime Minister for being with us this morning and our partners from the Organization of American States and the IMO for supporting the project. Your interventions have been appreciated. Ms. Botet, Mr. Adams, thank you, and please relay our gratitude to your principals. To the Caribbean Development Bank, thank you for supporting the RSS in its quest to generate greater coordinated efforts at securing the Maritime Commons. Dr. Leon, your presence with us this morning continues to underscore the value the bank places on security and its relationship with the regional security system. To the representatives of the RSS member forces here today, thank you for supporting this cause. A special thank you also goes out to the project leads who led national efforts to design and develop those strategies. Lieutenant Colonel Walker, Mr. Wayne Maiku, Lieutenant Commander Derek Brathwaite, Mr. Harold Geist, Mr. Fred Redhead, Mr. Ricky Quinlan, Major Andrew Bass, and Mr. Hyrone Johnson from each of the RSS member states. And lastly, thank you to the virtual audience who joined us today to celebrate this achievement. A pleasant good morning to you all.